Good morning, everyone. Dr. Stillman here today to talk about drinking water quality, which is something that always comes up in my discussions with people who come to see me because it is such an important part of health. Think about it. You drink something that probably comes out of your tap or a bottle or your refrigerator all the time. You use it to make things like lemonade or iced tea or coffee. And you may say occasionally, well, the tap water tastes kind of funny today. And there are days when it tastes different, aren't there? You'll notice that if you drink it for long enough, as I used to, right? But you really ought to ask the question, what's actually coming out of my tap water? What's actually coming out of my refrigerator filter? What's actually coming out of the pitcher filter that I have in the refrigerator? Because invariably what you'll realize is that no one is really watching out for you but you. And you can find out what's in your water by Googling your municipal water authorities' water reports. They should publish those on a regular basis. The ones for my town of Richmond, Virginia, are published annually. I don't have the report for 2020. And one of the things that I found when I reviewed it was that there were a lot of different ranges for things. In other words, for example, fluoride, which I don't think should be in water for human health or should be added to water for human health, is present in a very wide range, which means that you might actually get a very different dose of fluoride at the different times of year, different seasons of the year, or even different locations around town, right? So all of this is basically to say that your water is dynamic. It changes as your environment changes. It can change with the seasons of the year. It can change with changes in hydrology that you're not even aware of. Something changes upstream from you in terms of the water that's being delivered to your town, city, municipality, or your well, and all of a sudden overnight your water goes from good to bad. Now, what is really important for you to know about bad water? Because this is sort of a nebulous concept, right? At the end of the day, most people want their water to not poison them in the next 24, 48, or 72 hours. But if it's poisoning them slowly and insidiously over a long period of time, it can actually be very difficult to figure out that the water is the problem. For example, people can be drinking from contaminated wells and they just don't know why they don't feel right. And month after month and year after year, they aren't well and they don't figure it out. And then finally they have their well tested and it turns out it was contaminated with petroleum products that had seeped into the well from an old, oil tank that had been forgotten in the ground by somebody who lived next door 20 years ago, and the house had fallen down and it was just all overgrown. That kind of thing happens. Superfund sites are all over the place. I often hear about Superfund sites that I had never heard of in places that I had lived for periods of time, right? There's not signage on these things. No one puts it on your rental application or your homeowner's application or anything like that. So you've got to watch out for you, which means that you've got to be looking at the water reports for your location. And one of the things I noticed about the water report for Richmond, Virginia is that a lot of toxic chemicals that I'm concerned about in my patients, and that I actually often find to be abnormal when I test them, are not actually on the Virginia water quality reports. So I couldn't find out what's the level of mercury or lead or arsenic or tin or antimony or whatever. And the reason that this matters is that those levels can change dynamically, right? So maybe they're this on December 1st and maybe they're that on February 1st. And if you don't have consistent monitoring, if you don't have consistent data, then this may be a problem that is in your blind spot. And whenever I find an abnormality like this, the question always becomes between me and the patient, well, where is it coming from and how big of a deal is it for your health? There are many sources of these things in the environment, but until you make sure that your water is not a problem, it can continue to be a problem. So people can't really trust the cheap filters that they are equipped with or easy to equip yourself with. They're not going to filter out the things that you need to really be concerned about. They usually are optimized for improving water taste, but not water quality. And the last thing I'll say about this is that even when the levels are low of pollutants that you're concerned about, whether it's lead or mercury or petroleum products, the real problem isn't actually, well, the other problem is that it may poison you slowly over a long period of time. So what does it matter that you've got a slightly higher than average intake of mercury from your water? That's a tax and a strain on the body that over time may set you up for early failure. Conversely, when we look at levels of beneficial things in water like magnesium or calcium or other trace elements like copper, I could go on, right? because these levels vary a lot from place to place, those levels are often protective. That's why, when I see people who've got hard water from a well that's been thoroughly tested in a, environmentally pristine area, I tell them you don't need to remove that hard water from your water. You just need to make sure that your well stays free of contaminants and chemicals. And so long as that is okay, then that hard water is full of trace elements that you would otherwise need to be adding back into your water if you were, say, filtering it with something like reverse osmosis. For me, living in the city, reverse osmosis filtered water is the most convenient solution, and that is what I am using. I remineralize it with trace elements from concentrates because trace elements are essential for life. And that's what I want people to know about their tap water today. So thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget, I've got a webinar series starting on the 15th, Hidden Causes of Headaches. It's going to be running Tuesdays and Thursdays for 5 or 6 weeks. It's like 9 episodes right now. And if you want more information, just check my social media on my Facebook page or on my Instagram profile. That's where the information is. And if you haven't already, sign up for my newsletter, Dr. Stillman's Wellness Secrets. The October edition is underway. It will be published in 3 weeks. And as always, thank you for watching and take care.